What's up? You are now listening to Americanized, a storytelling podcast where you'll hear from eclectic first and second generation Americans share their stories and real life experiences as children of immigrants.
Happy New Year and welcome back to Americanized. After a super long hiatus, I am back to share some new stories and experiences with you from me and of course from some new voices too. In this episode, I will be reflecting on the past year and share some of my personal highlights from 2024. Stay tuned. Oh my goodness, 2024 has been a year filled with blessings for me and my family, and I hope it was for you too. For me, last year was very family-oriented and travel-oriented. I started my year in Côte d'Ivoire to surprise my big sister Jenny and to see her newborn daughter at the time. This trip felt a little impromptu for a few different reasons. One, it was a surprise, so we didn't tell anybody other than my mom, and she told her sister, my aunt, who helped us coordinate everything back home while we were still in the States. It was a successful surprise because word travels quickly in my African family, especially now that WhatsApp is on and popping, and we knew the secret could not be kept if anybody else knew. My mom was really good at keeping that secret, and she didn't even tell my dad, which was amazing. He eventually found out, but he didn't have a lot of time to process this information, which was actually good. So this trip was impromptu and it also felt urgent. I remember being in an Airbnb in Montreal with my family for my cousin's wedding and felt extra strong about visiting. And this was back in November and we were planning to leave in December. So we only had a month or so to plan for this trip. And I had to update my passport because it was expired, and then looking at hotels and Airbnbs in the area. And just planning for an international trip in a short amount of time can lead to some stress, but it was a lot to look forward to at the same time. Also, another reason, this was my second trip to Côte d'Ivoire in 2024, which is so wild considering the travel cost, and booking flights to Côte d'Ivoire for the holidays in November is expensive, because everybody wants to go back home for the holidays where it's actually nice and hot as opposed to the Boston cold. But luckily, Parker was very invested in finding us tickets and helping us find a good deal. Me and my sister Nikki, it was just us two who went on this trip. So yeah, we pretty much decided in mid-November that we wanted to go back home for the holidays to see our sister and our baby niece. So we were set to travel on Christmas Eve, which is a wild time to travel. But I spent part of my Christmas Eve with my in-laws for their huge Italian feast of 7 fishes. It's a tradition that they have every Christmas Eve, and I absolutely love seafood. It is my favorite. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay and enjoy all of the seafood because I had a flight to catch. Looking back, there are several reasons why this trip was such a blessing and why it was really meant to be. One, the secret was successfully kept a secret. Two, my sister and I caught COVID a few weeks or days before our scheduled flight. And praise God, we were cleared a few days before we had our flight scheduled. I think it was probably just 2 days or so before we were scheduled to leave, which is crazy. So that's how I knew this trip was meant to be. And, with my auntie helping us coordinate the trip and everything, and helping us with the hotel, finding the hotel and communicating with the hotel people, we found one across the street from where my sister lives back home, which was an easy commute to walk over to her place. We arrived to Abidjan. I would say it was probably around It was late. It was dark outside, sometime in the evening, maybe 9, 10, or 11. And when we got to her apartment, the door to the building was unlocked, and we would later learn that this door is usually always locked. So the fact that it was unlocked and we were able to enter her building without any suspicions, without having to knock on the door and ask her to answer it, was crazy amazing. So we got into her apartment building and then up the stairs to her actual door. And then we rang the doorbell and we jumped out and we surprised her, and she was in shock. I think she was speechless and confused, and I think confusion was the primary thing that she was feeling at that time. But before that step, we had to get there, and getting there was kind of an obstacle because we had so many transfers, and I am not the queen of time management. I'll be honest. It is something that I struggle with, and I'm open about that. So this is how the trip went. We drove to Boston Logan Airport, and from there we went to JFK. From JFK, we flew to Senegal, and from Senegal, we went straight to Cote d'Ivoire. So that was our layover in Senegal, and I think it was just an hour, so not much time. It was just back-to-back transfers, so we really had to be on top of our schedule. When we were at JFK, the security line, oh my goodness, that was so long. It was so long, I thought we would have missed the flight because it was not moving. There was families back to back to back to back with large luggages, mostly African people with huge luggages to go back home with for the holidays, is my assumption. But I was getting really nervous. And it wasn't even the line at the gate. This was the security line. So we weren't even halfway there. We just had to get through the security line. We did make it through all those transfers smoothly with no bumps in the road other than that line that was making me nervous. We caught all of our flights, had everything in order, no issues. Perfect. I said, God is with us and this trip is meant to be. When we arrived on Christmas, seeing my newborn niece for the first time was such a precious moment. She is so precious. And I was shocked by how small she was. I mean, she was only just over a month old at that point. So, of course, she's small, but I'm not near a lot of babies in my day-to-day. So I was like, oh, she's so cute. And I got to hold her and everything. And throughout my time there, spent a lot of time with her, just holding her, feeding her, putting her to sleep. I love babies. I instantly fell in love with her. If I wasn't already in love with her from the pictures I've seen of her, through WhatsApp. But of course, it's so different when you finally see somebody in person and it's a baby, and I miss her so much. It's been over a year since I've seen her. So the tricky part about being back home for the holidays is that it's a bustling time. There's lots to do. Abidjan is a very active city, the capital city of Cote d'Ivoire. So we had to balance supporting postpartum Jenny while enjoying our vacation and trying to experience all that Cote d'Ivoire has to offer. Now, my sister Nikki is really into nightlife, especially in Abidjan. Anytime she's back home, she has these spots that she likes to go to. And, I was down to do that, but also wanted to spend time with the baby and support. I mean, we both did, but we had to find a balance. So we did have opportunities to go out, get our nails done, get facials done, cook some meals at home, or go out to eat at restaurants. We tried bubble tea, which you probably wouldn't expect there to be bubble tea in Abidjan, but you'll find all kinds of foods back home. And bubble tea was pretty good. It was a little different, but it was pretty good. There is one place called Baoli, and this new place called Bote, and it's spelled Beauthe apostrophe. So it's like a play on words. But when you order back home, the food does take forever. It feels like it just takes a while. You're just waiting for a long time. We were waiting for a long time. Now that I remember it, we were waiting for a long time to get our bubble tea. Whereas anywhere in the city where I live in Boston, bubble tea comes out like real quick. I also try the French taco, which is basically like a burrito with French fries, meat, and some sauce. And 10 out of 10. We ended our trip around New Year's, and we actually, the day that we left, we were at the beach earlier that day. We went to this beautiful beach in Bassam with sand so clean and pristine and beautiful. And it was a warm day. It was such a beautiful moment. All of us were there. And what I like about the beaches back home is that they're usually attached to a restaurant. So you get to eat and swim. The water was nice and clear, and the waves are always crazy. There was a scary moment where my nephew I don't think he knows how to swim completely yet. He is learning, but the waves almost snatched him. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but the waves did almost snatch him, and it was really scary. Looking back, hilarious because we have it on video and it's kind of funny to watch, but terrifying at the same time. The waves don't play, they're really strong and they're pretty scary, and that is why a lot of people stay out of the water at the beaches, especially if they can't swim. But people who are more adventurous and know how to swim, like myself, I love to just jump in the water and see what see what I can do. But he's adventurous, but he doesn't know how to swim that well. So it was a little scary to see him rolling in the water pretty much. But I think the funny part about the video is more so the way everybody is screaming to get him, not so much that he's getting pulled by the waves, because that part is scary. So on New Year's Eve, until, the midnight countdown, I stayed up with my sisters, Nikki and Jenny, and my nephew, and we were in deep prayer, just thanking God for what he's done all of 2023 and praying for what he will do in 2024. And as I reflect on this and I think about those prayers we had at the beginning of 2024, and I look back on that year and I can see all the blessings, it's a really heartfelt moment. And it's so nice to reflect on that and to see how gracious and glorious God is and all that he does for us. Just reflecting now, I'm like, this is amazing. That's how I started the year, really. And that was the first New Year's I had, or first New Year celebration, Christmas and New Year's I had with my older sister since 2012, 2013, which is crazy to think about. Kind of sad to think about, really. So that was really nice that we got to see her during those holidays. We also did experience the nightlife around the New Year holiday season. We went to this area called Blocos, and they just have back to back to back strip of outdoor bars and clubs by the water. So we coordinated with our cousins, which was a little challenging to do because there was a big group of us. But we were pretty much up all night with them. At one point, my cousin Romy he ate chicken. He had like this chicken bone in his hand and he was dancing while eating it. And then my other cousin was like, he was falling asleep because he had work the next day. So he needed to sleep, but he was still hanging out with us. And as he's falling asleep, he's still dancing. So we got one cousin dancing with chicken, another cousin dancing in his sleep, and we're unfazed because we're on vacation. We probably went to bed around 6 a.m. and then just crashed the next day. A few days later, my sister and I flew back to the States and just resumed our American lives. As they say, life goes on. So that was a way to start off the year. Very different from the way I'm starting off 2025. But just reflecting back, I'm so thankful that that's how it started. Because last February, the African Cup of Nations was hosted in Cote d'Ivoire. So it was really fulfilling to start my year in that country because of these events to follow. That was really exciting for me. I got to watch live matches with my family, and in the end, Cote d'Ivoire played against Nigeria. And so this was kind of like an intense match because both of these countries have a lot going on for them, lots of hype coming from both sides. And in the end, we won, and it was really exciting for the country and for me to be Ivorian and to see how this country is being recognized, known, and just awareness of the country and as a whole seems like the awareness hasn't increased, probably because of the AFCON. Now, I still find myself telling people, like, yeah, my family's from Cote d'Ivoire, the country next to Ghana. But overall, my cousin Desiree and I feel like the AFCON, the African Cup of Nations, has helped build up the country's identity. Spending the beginning of the year in the motherland and then continuing to experience pride in my Ivorian identity through the country's success in the AFCON was very meaningful. And then throughout the year, I had family visiting from Cote d'Ivoire, and my cousin who used to live there but moved to France about 6 years ago, and finally getting to visit the USA and just having these connections throughout the year just really kept the, I won't say morale, I guess, and pride up there, but just kept me having a solid and firm identity ethnically. So that was a lot on Cote d'Ivoire, but I just love sharing about it. There is so much to the country that needs to be talked about, and I feel like more and more people are wanting to visit and travel and experience its culture, its rich culture, and know its history. There were many other highlights that happened throughout 2024, but the last two that I want to touch upon are food and Italy. One thing about me is I love food and I love to travel to eat. I made a couple new food discoveries in my travels. It was like 2024 was the year of trying novel foods or delicacies, if you will. My husband and I are both adventurous people, especially with food. So when we visited New York, not for the first time, but when we visited New York, he found this Japanese jazz bar called Tomi Jazz or Tommy Jazz, Tomi Jazz. This place is definitely a hidden gem in a literal sense because I believe it's a speakeasy. It's a very popular place. It had a long line that we had to wait in, but it was definitely worth the wait. Once we got inside, you saw the jazz band. It was giving like speakeasy. It was dark, dimly lit room. There was a nice vibe in there. And when we looked at the menu, our eyes widened when we both saw vinegar marinated jellyfish on the menu. And we looked at each other and we were like, we knew we had to try the jellyfish. And we also tried sea urchin croquettes for the first time, but I don't remember too much about how those tasted, but I will tell you how the jellyfish tasted because that was really memorable. Now, as I mentioned before, I love seafood. So I was down to try it. Anything seafood related, I'm usually down to try. So to describe jellyfish, it was surprisingly crunchy and reminded me a lot of seaweed salad if you ever had it. If not, you could have seaweed salad and say that you've ate jellyfish because they're that similar. But I was expecting it to be more slimy and gooey and chewy, but it had a crunch to it. It was good. It was cold and crunchy. I would recommend you checking out this place. It's in New York City. I want to say it's somewhere in Manhattan. I don't know. I don't remember exactly where we were, but Tomi Jazz is definitely worth checking out. Another new food that I tried last year was rabbit. I tried rabbit not once, but twice last year. I don't even know how it happened. It's really not bad. It's a lot like duck, which I love. I love duck even more than chicken. It's the dark meat that I like. But the first time I tried rabbit. I was so hesitant to try it. I was like, yes, let's try it, but also don't know if I should. I like bunnies, they're cute, and I see them often. But honestly, if you're like sensitive to eating animals, probably don't listen to this part. So, warning, but it was delicious. I really like the rabbit. In Florence, we went to this restaurant. It was like this really cool interior, and you could tell it was like homemade type cooking style, but also with a gourmet touch. And we saw rabbit on the menu. It was like this rabbit roll up thing, and it was really delicious. It had this sweetness to it. It was well cooked, and I feel like I had to take out of my head the animal that I was eating because it was that good. And sometimes when I look at rabbits now, I'm like, you taste good. The second time I had a rabbit was at this restaurant, a Spanish restaurant in Somerville, Massachusetts, called Dolly. And Parker took me out to see the Dolly exhibit at the MFA, and we followed the day by eating at the Dolly restaurant. And we were going through the menu, and it was one of the last meals that we tried. They had a rabbit. It was more of like a stew, nice and sweet, nicely seasoned, marinated, juicy, delicious. Now, if you think you might like to try rabbit, but you're a little hesitant, I would start with duck. Say you've tried duck and you don't like it, you probably might not like rabbit. But I highly recommend it because it was really, really good. And the third novelty meal that I had tried last year, which is more common because people fry it and eat it that way. I think especially in New Orleans. I tried frog legs. Now this was like a Greek styled frog leg. We went to this restaurant in Brookline that features Northern Greek cuisine. And interestingly enough, frog legs was part of the cuisine. The way I would describe frog legs is a crossover between chicken and fish. Looks like chicken, tastes like fish. Yeah, that one made me more sensitive because, like, what part of the animal you're eating. With rabbit, the way they prepared it, you couldn't tell what part of the rabbit you were eating. It's not like they gave you a rabbit leg and you could see the shape of the leg. But with the frog legs, it's like eating a chicken leg. Now we're so desensitized to eating chicken, so that doesn't bother me. But a frog leg, because it's like a tiny, skinny little thing and it's cute. It was so cute when I was eating it. I know that sounds really weird. And it tasted pretty good. It was just giving me, I guess it made me a little uncomfortable. So I don't know if I would eat frog legs again. Maybe I would try them fried, but this was like the way I had it at this restaurant. It was more baked, I want to say. And because it was so soft, the way a fish would be textured, I was like not sure if it was fully cooked, but it's not a chicken, so I guess that is the texture of a cooked frog. So it was like a little soft, squishy, but looked like a chicken, tasted like a fish crossover. It was really interesting. We are coming to a close, but before that, I did want to touch a little bit about Italy. I feel like this could probably be an entire episode itself, but this was such a huge highlight of my year. We went in the summertime, so it was like mid-year adventure. Parker and I flew to his motherland, Italy, because he is half Italian. This was his second time to Italy, and this was my first time. So he was a great tour guide for me. He revisited familiar places while I was discovering new places at the same time. Now, Parker is a fantastic photographer, although he won't admit it. So we would be walking down the streets and stop somewhere because we would be at the exact same spot where he took a photo about 6 years ago. It's like photographic memory. He would remember the exact spot. And you could pull up the picture that he took 6 years ago. And I was like, this is crazy. But I was so impressed by that. One thing I'll say about Italy, it is such a lovely country. Aesthetically, visually, culturally, their whole hospitality. I loved that about Italy. I loved how distinct each city that we visited was. It felt like each city had its own individualized characteristics and personalities. And they're really set apart. It's like you're in the same country, but you know what city you're in based on the culture that that specific city has. So we traveled to many different cities for me to be able to say that and say, yeah, Rome is really different from Naples, which is really different from Venice and Milan. So we did visit Rome, Naples, Sorrento, Florence, Siena, Milan, the Lake Como area, Venice, and Cinque Terre. Honestly, I don't think I have a favorite city. I had a great experience in each of these cities. I have favorite memories from each of these cities, but out of all of them, I don't know. They're just all so different. Yeah, I think I will have to dig a little deeper in a different episode for sure, but that was definitely a highlight of my 2024. Thinking ahead in 2025, I don't know what travels I'll have. We didn't plan anything yet. I don't know what foods I'll be eating or what new foods or animals I'll be eating. Hopefully nothing crazy. I think I'd be down to eat more rabbit this year. So I actually won't share my goals and resolutions here, other than hoping to release episodes on a regular basis. So whatever your goals and resolutions are, I believe in your ability to achieve them.
Thank you so much for listening. Hope to catch you in the next episode. All original music produced by Stubborn Soul. You can find him on all music listening platforms at STBRNSAL.